What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I'm one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, we are inching ever so closer to real football. We got training camp
I know.
that started, and then we got the scrimmage, and then we got Hard Knocks debuting last night. We have preseason football for the Bills that starts this weekend. We had preseason football debut last week for the NFL with the Hall of Fame game. We are getting closer. Feels like the closer we get, I feel like we're getting farther away because it's like every day I'm just like, come on, like get there already. We'll have real tape to go through and real pieces to break down. But nonetheless, we are here on another episode of the Film Room to talk about Hard Knocks, to talk about several players and position groups throughout camp and some stock up, stock down, the watches there like we've done previously on the show. But before we get into that, how you doing? How you feeling? How's it going?
Good. It's kind of odd to go from the lull period when you have like no content and you have to like create content to almost to a point now as the season is right ahead of us of content like overload, because you have all the stuff that's happening in camp, all those projections, all the stock reports like we're going to talk about today. But then to add in HBO, Hard Knocks, Josh Allen, Tre White, Deion Dawkins, the Buffalo Bills on Hard Knocks. It's almost like too much content where I'm still catching up because we do have day jobs. So, it's fun. I'm happy. I'm excited to talk about Hard Knocks. I'm excited to talk about some of the news surrounding the team. But like you said, man, I'm the most excited about the season being right in front of us, right around the corner. Bills' first game of the season, preseason game, is Saturday. So it's right here. It's right around the corner, guys.
Yeah, literally. It's funny how you outlined that. And you just go from talking about projections and future things and so many things, and then out of nowhere it's just like bang, it's here. And as much as we've kind of anticipating and waiting for it, it just kind of hits you, and then everything stacks and builds and stacks and builds. And let's lead off, Eric, with that Hard Knocks piece, the debut episode last night, episode 1. I was talking to my wife about it last night, just like about how, because she didn't really know much about Hard Knocks. And I'm still kind of wrapping my head around the idea and the notion of like the Bills being on Hard Knocks. It's still weird for me to see them have as many primetime games. Yeah, as they do. And I've thought of all the teams that have been on there throughout the years and the access they used to get as a fan. I remember the very first season was with the Ravens back in the day. I think the year after they won their first Super Bowl. And then they moved on from Dilfer, brought in Elvis Gerbach, I believe, or maybe it was the Kyle Bowler years, and everything that started to go through from there. And I remember the Jets being on it and all these teams, and they have the Bills now and cameras at St. John Fisher, and the Bills be this focus. And it's still really cool to kind of see that. And I think last night was very much a baseline episode. And I'm interested to see where they go from here. I'm very interested to see if they do any James Cook contract stuff going forward.
They have to. It was kind of, the episode 1 was kind of a setup. It was kind of a foundation. And that's what I liked about it. It was very, very wholesome, and genuine. Just, okay, these are the players. These are the characters, right? There was no drama. There's no real like heavy storylines. They kind of just, this was the introduction to everyone. This was the introduction to the team. And that's why I think coming away from that first episode, I just felt lucky as a fan and as for someone that covers this team. I just felt lucky that this team, I know they haven't won it all, but the success that they've, sustained over the years since we've been covering this team, I feel lucky. I feel lucky that as a fan and analyst, we've gotten to track Josh Allen throughout his career, that we have as fans and analysts a quarterback like Josh Allen, a guy that understands the city, understands how he grew up, understands what he needs to do for the city and this team in order to sustain that success. And so the other thing is like having guys like Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott in charge. You can see why they hold the character of these players and those, the backgrounds of these players and how much work they put into getting to know the person, not just the player, but the person and their families, because at the root of that show, the first episode, you could just feel and sense how important the team, the Bills are to these players, but how their families as well and the communities. It's just all ingrained. It's all, you could see it and sense it just in that first episode. I thought HBO did a great job of relaying that to outsiders.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool for them really focusing on that, especially for a baseline episode, right? To really establish everything you said, like the Bills are a fabric of the community and the city to a tremendous degree. And I know that exists for some other teams, right? Like I know the Packers have a huge piece for that. And I'm sure there's a lot of other like major city, quote unquote teams that it hits with. But yeah, that piece was really cool for them just to tie it to how much the team matters. And even, Allen speaking on it and the players speaking on it of what the community means and the city and what the team means to the city. And then even tying that into guys like, Tre White and highlighting like multiple, him saying it, but also being talking about like, him feeling comfortable being home and, his family's back here and showing the interaction with him and Deion Dawkins' kids and the whole Uncle Trey bit. It was nice to see that again for I think it was more of a fluff episode. Maybe I wonder how many people who aren't Bills fans like that episode and were like, this is boring. Like, I don't care about this. I'm sure people tuned in because they were like, oh, I want to see what's going on with James Cook, or I want to see what's happening behind the scenes. I think this was an episode very much for Bills fans and Bills Mafia, and I think that worked out well. And we'll see where it goes from here in terms of what stars they try to establish, what storylines we get. And again, they'll have content going forward with this James Cook stuff. The preseason games right around the corner, and then we start to get into the cuts and all the different things. But I thought this episode was a very fine baseline, obviously more so if you're a Bills fan.
Very fine baseline, I'm sure, from the perspective of Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. No drama. There's no drama here. Like, it's all family. It's all great.
Everything's nice.
Again, they're setting it up because obviously there's some friction right now when it comes to the James Cook thing. And we're going to talk about that later. But I thought it was interesting, and it's a consistent message that you have heard from McDermott over the years, that growth mindset and that speech he had prior to day one of camp. And
so on brand what he said.
And it just when he's talking about that mindset of, practice is important and don't be afraid to fail. This is the time you need to do that. When he gave that speech, it just flowed so naturally, like he had said it before. That's his thing with him. You can say anything you want about him, but he is super consistent, and his message is not any different. And I know a lot of these guys, this roster, there's not a lot of turnover. And so a lot of these guys have heard this message, but it's funny because when you talk to players, they always say everything around here is consistent. And Sean McDermott obviously showed that. And I just love that fact of he was preaching, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Just learn from it. This is practice. This is the time that you need to do that, especially if you're young. Like, this is the time to grow and grow as a team, not just as a player, but as a team going forward.
Yeah, and I think that quote was something along the lines of like, you need to fail in order to become the best version of yourself or the best of what you can become or something. And it was just so, between that and him wearing the playoff caliber shirt, I was just like, this is so on brand. Like, it's just on brand for McDermott, on brand for the team. Even him, even talking to Terry Pagula and Pagula asking about like Max Hairston, and then McDermott already being like, he's going to compete. He's here to compete with Trey. He's talking about everything. He's just like, I feel like he just naturally ticks those buzzwords that he's always preaching. Like, and for as much as he keeps it close to the vest, I don't think there's much like acting for him on the show. Like, I think that was how he is when the cameras are rolling and when they're not. Like, he has his credos and his mantras and his buzzwords that he hits them on that Sean McDermott bingo, and continues to just drive it home with the team. Yeah, that reflected with him right off the bat for that.
Yeah, and obviously Josh Allen was, kind of the star, as he should be.
Very big focal point.
And I liked how you heard every player kind of like pitch in their 2 cents about Josh, and Dawkins jokingly saying like, we've seen him grow up before our eyes. And even as fans and analysts, like, we have too, like, we have really seen him come a long way, and everything that he's earned, like, kudos to him, because there have been several times along the way, whether you're talking back to Wyoming, back to Reedley College, or even as recent as, just a couple of years, even last year, once Diggs left, he was supposed to regress. He was supposed to regress after all those weapons that he had at his disposal for a couple years. And then what did he do last year? He lit it up and he became the MVP. So it was awesome, to hear guys talk about him like that way. And honestly, whether it's Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, Joe Brady, I mean, this team wouldn't be as good as they are without Josh Allen. And Joe Brady even said the only reason I'm here is because of Josh Allen. And that's true. And so Josh has made a lot of people's careers. And like I said, that's why I just feel like we're so lucky across the board to have that quarterback in Buffalo.
I think this is another one that like it maybe hasn't fully hit me. Just like the Bills being good now hasn't still fully hit me. Like, yeah, the magnitude of having Allen, even him talking in like the lead ups to Hard Knocks, and even a bit last night, like that's also when it kind of hit me too. I'm like, damn, like yeah, he's been in the league like 8 years. Like he's going in like he's closer to 30 now. It really does feel like just yesterday when he was drafted, and it was like, oh, like he's still a bit of a wild horse, but his mechanics were all over the place and he was just trucking dudes and he had a cannon. And I was still believing that Robert Foster could be a wide receiver
one, baby.
And I still believe it if he didn't get hurt going into that next year's camp. That's a conversation for another time. But yeah, to see his trajectory as the quarterback of this team, but just as a player in the league, and then how the team has kind of been focused and circled around him, and the different iterations of the team that's been around him as we progressed year from year, from a coaching standpoint, from a piece standpoint. Yeah, that's been cool to see. And even just the little tidbits like Dawkins about to do a rep and him just being like, this is what we're paid for, to make sure like nobody touches 17. Even Bobby Babbage they're in the film room with the defense, and he gave our line. He talked about, the coverage and the rush have to be married and more together. But he says that and leads right into like, nobody touch 17. We got to make sure we don't touch 17.
Right.
He says something along the lines of like him being the meal taker, this and that. So even in the defensive beating room, it's just like a reminder, Josh Allen is important and very good.
Yeah. And the cool part, obviously this year with like such little turnover, where there is turnover, it's almost the most important piece to a quarterback, and that's a wide receiver position. There's obviously some turnover there, but we got to hear, and it's not anything new to Bills fans, but we got to hear Josh talk about how important that rapport is with his wide receivers, which, when he was with Cole Beasley, that was like the huge storyline every single training camp. And it's no different this year, but it's awesome to hear the communication aspect of it and how Josh is able to verbalize to the wide receivers on, where he's going to release it, the trajectory of it. Josh is huge into golf, and golf is all about muscle memory. And you could tell Josh has that mindset where he wants to, when he's trying to make a certain throw to, say, Josh Palmer on a fade route, which you saw them practicing a bunch, he wants to drop it in how Josh Palmer likes to catch it. We've talked about this, right? Mm-hmm. The different weapons they have in the wide receiver room, that basketball team approach, guys that say they're all running fades. Every single receiver is in a line. They're running fades. Each guy is going to like the ball placed differently. Each guy is going to want the ball speed to be differently based on their height, their length, how fast they get into that route stem. There are many factors that go into that. It was cool to hear Josh kind of verbalize it and then work on that fade route to Palmer. And if you guys were paying attention closely, he said that Palmer likes it dropped in a bucket. Whereas when you watch Keon, what's he want to do? He wants to go up and get it, or he wants it on the back shoulder so he can adjust. Each wide receiver is different, and you got to see glimpses of that when Josh Palmer and Josh Allen were working together on that fade route.
Yeah, that was a really cool piece to see just in general, and especially for myself. I noted that, I think it was on, they were doing stuff like that, and Brady was getting involved, especially after practice on day one. But that film piece that we saw last night was really on day two. And I remember posting about it, and it was just cool to see that, like, I could tell what was going on, but it was almost exactly like what was going on. They were talking, and Palmer was going over, how he likes the ball. Allen was talking to him about the timing and the tempo of the route and what he looks for and when he's trying to throw it and what he's going to do. And that was happening so much early on with Palmer and Allen. And then, Joe Brady would come in and talk to Palmer about some things. And that's important, especially with the role that we anticipate Palmer having, and especially with the injuries. we've seen thus far in camp with some guys being banged up. We need to see a lot. That man, separator, he's going to be towards the top of the depth chart. He's going to give us probably the best chance at that true X presence this year for that team. So their rapport needs to be on point, and their timing and their chemistry and understanding. And he's right up there. I think, Shakir and Coleman is still developing, but Palmer, it's really good to just see them aligning and what we surmise is happening in camp being actually what's happening when the mics are on and the footage is rolling, and, being able to kind of put those pieces together. And those two are going to be, even if Palmer, it's not like Palmer has to be a 90 catch, 100 catch guy, even if it's like 50 to 65, but where he matters is going to be when Allen needs him on those third downs, maybe red zone stuff. Like, he matters schematically to this offense. So that was cool to see.
Yeah. And in that segment, you kind of saw Josh making some like awesome throws. Like, his throwing motion, I would say, like, the stroke of his throws, like, they're just so on point now.
The rotational aspect of it. Like, I remember some quarterbacks are like rotational athletes, and it flows so well with the golf swing. Like, you can see him just following through, biting the burger, the motion. Yeah.
It's so much different than when he came into the league. Everything was violent. It was so violent, and it was more of like a whipping motion, but now it's that torso, that rotational twist to his body and his frame, and you can see it all of that energy being directed, all the way out of his arm and hands onto the ball, and he's dropping it down to different platforms. Like, just some of the throws that they obviously were putting in slow motion, because they look cool. You can just see how far he's come. And again, it's been so much fun to cover him because of his success, the success on the field, but also how he's changed literally everything about his life on and off the field, but more so the mechanics of how he throws, which is obviously the most important thing for a quarterback.
Yeah, you nailed it with kind of how he threw initially. I went back, I don't know why. I went back and I was watching a bunch of YouTube highlights of his rookie season stuff. And even the throw to Robert Foster against the Jags, like, it was almost like he threw, like, first of all, his motion, his mechanics were like inconsistent. They changed almost from throw to throw. But yeah, he threw almost like, the way I always compared to like a person on like a track team throws like a javelin. Like, it was just this weird, like, his body would be too in front of his shoulder, and it was like he was pushing, but also violently snapping the ball. And yeah, to see where he is now, you can almost see the energy transfer, especially on those slow motion throws, like going from like the lower body through the upper, through the arm, all the way through the fingertips to the spin on the ball. Like, it's just, and like you said, it's just so effortless. And it's really nice to see, because we were sitting here at this point last year, before this past season, talking about he's got to clean up some of his mechanic stuff. And we didn't know if that lack of offseason work due to injury or anything else was kind of compromising that a bit. And then we spent a bunch of the 2024 season here in the film room highlighting his mechanics and his throwing motion and all of those pieces. And it really paid dividends for him last year and for the offense.
Yeah, and this was a scene from, I'm not going to hit play or anything, but I wanted to talk about it real quick.
Steven Gosnell, wide receiver 1.
Yes, and Brady is in the background kind of narrating how the mechanics and communication between Josh and his receivers has been so good. And this was a play where Josh hit Gosnell, who is this wide receiver right here. Hopefully you can see it, but he's this guy right here. He's the number 2 guy in that set. Bills are in a trip set to the top of the screen. Gosnell runs a deep corner. The guy inside him, the number 1 inside, right up the hash there, he runs a post. And then the number 1 outside, who's kind of trailing a couple yards behind them, runs just an in-breaking route. It's called a divide route. And so you have a post safety, Damar Hamlin, on the bottom hash right here. He's getting back to the post. So that post route by I don't even know who it is, honestly, but he runs a post route. This guy right here runs a post, takes a post safety. Yeah. And so this is a really good, like, too high safety beater. Well, Gosnell is really running is what I think Joe Brady calls like the love of the game route, right? He's kind of just trying to clear this corner out so that this guy right here can get it underneath. But Josh sees Gosnell get some separation and he hits him deep for a deep touchdown. It was, one of those plays that's like, hey, Brady was kind of giving props to Gosnell and saying, hey, this is one route. I'm just going to run it all out. If he didn't run it all out, he would have gotten a touchdown. And in one of the few opportunities early on that Gosnell got, he took advantage of it, went all out, and earned that touchdown on this play.
Yeah, and then Brady mocked his spike.
The
He
spike
didn't
was
like how
bad.
the
Yeah.
spike came through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Brady was talking about it in another clip too. I think he literally called him like a Joe Brady route.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super funny that like that's the verbiage they use for the you're just pulling coverage. Hey, it's for the love of the game route. I like that's kind of understood. Like, hey, you got a Joe Brady route on this one. And and then Allen put it right on Goss. Now, this was one I think that was highlighted a bunch by people at camp that day, especially because this was one of those days too where it felt like every receiver was dropping like flies. And then Gosnell made that catch, and all of a sudden it was like, oh man, is this the new Andy Isabella?
Oh yeah, I think he was just released too. No, it was there's some cool stuff. Like there, unfortunately for us here in the film room, there's not many like cuts that we can kind of analyze, which we'd love to do even training camp footage. But one guy that you just almost have to talk about because he's just so likable. And my wife, Evan, was like, God, Tre is awesome. Tre White,
man.
like to have him back, like it hits me in all the feels, right? Like to have him back, to have him healthy, you can just see and sense that he feels at home and his family feels at home. And when you're comfortable and you can just worry about work in your craft, you have a guy that can really help this Bills defense this year if he stays healthy. And we'll talk about Hairston in a second, but Tre White, I'm happy is back. And I think it was such a smart move by Brandon Beane. It's a perfect, and they painted the picture beautifully.
Yeah, they did.
And Tre admitted that he sees a lot of himself in Hairston, whether it's the first round pick and all that stuff. I think it was such a smart move by Brandon Beane. One of the smarter moves that we've seen in the last few off seasons.
Yeah, especially with Hairston unfortunately getting banged up now. And yeah, it just seemed like such a great answer for depth and potential competition. You've got someone who is so well liked and respected in the building, with the front office, with the players, on the field, off the field, within the community, with the families of, he talked about it. Like he has genuine friends on this team. And, we mentioned earlier, him interacting with Deone Dawkins' kids. And it really was great from a culture standpoint and an off the field standpoint. And then we've seen him just rocking out in camp so far, and even a bit last night. I think it was, Coach Adai who just kept, T White, squeeze him, T White. Like this, just a hollering for him almost every clip through some of the Hard Knocks pieces. And Tre was locking dudes down at different points. And this has gone from a nice depth signing, potential competition, and a feel good moment to a guy who has looked very good. And McDermott said it to Terry Pagula when Pagula asked. He was like, he's been trending up like this, positive trajectory, the past year, and has been completely healthy. No setbacks was the verbiage Sean McDermott used. And we noted that with us seeing him in person. He just looks healthy. He looks confident physically and mentally. And I'm sure, not to kind of play into it too much, I'm sure being back home, quote unquote, helps you play like that, especially when we know that his road to recovery off the first injury, he talked about being in a dark place and the mental side of it. That's an aspect that every player feels, and you can tell that he feels good physically and mentally, and it's manifesting on the field.
Yeah, he's in a great headspace too. It's all working out for him. You see the quickness in his feet, but more importantly, you see that quickness, one, because he sees it and he anticipates it. He's seeing a lot in the length of his career, and he trusts that his body is going to react how he wants it to. That health is important. That trust from, again, hey, your brain's telling you, I need to break on this ball because they're running a speed out. His body is now able to do that now that he's healthy. And that's why you're seeing, and you saw in a bunch of these clips where he was straight locking guys down. Here, he gets Keon Coleman along the boundary, but he was doing a lot of things where he was choking routes in zone where, he's in zone and maybe they're running a high-low, right? And then there's some guy coming on an out route and he is taking that away. He's beating them to that spot and choking that route off and eliminating that guy as a threat in zone coverage. And you're just starting to see that more and more. And that is something he was so good at years ago.
Yeah, the ability to choke that space and squeeze that space. And, we talked about it leading into camp or actually going through camp, I should say, just that spatial awareness and the ability to collect and pass guys off and not just cover grass and function. And he was just seemingly in the right place at the right time for a lot of coverage reps. Now, no, that doesn't mean he was perfect. That doesn't mean he's back to being completely all pro Tre, so on and so forth. But yeah, this went from, it was nice to see in the episode, like the nice pieces, right? And him at Pittsford Dairy, which, man, I wish I had some Pittsford Dairy. That was like one of my big.
Yeah, we had to stop there when I took the family.
It's so good. I want to get some chocolate milk from there, like ASAP, and some ice cream. But like that was him with Benford, and the whole Tre Day Sunday piece was cool. But him actually on the field, very effective. Like, again, you see him here on Shakir, just in lockstep with the whole way. I remember this route too, because he picked him up coming from across the field. Like you just see really good functionality coming from him. And that was important in general, right? But then with Hairston picking up that injury, if he can just get closer to versions of himself, and it was really cool seeing him get the extra work running on the hill. I thought that was awesome. And he said, what did he say? Like everything that you can do to kind of get an edge on your competition, bump yourself up a little bit. Like he's here to work. He's here to compete. He's not here to just be home and be a nice story. He's here to be that CB2 and be that starter. And he's looked every bit the part of it in camp.
If he stays healthy, I just don't know how Hairston can really take that cornerback 2 position back,
especially with him missing time now, and it's not even really a competition anymore. Like I already thought Tre was getting the lion's share and looking to be the CB2 before Hairston went down, and then Hairston went down, and yeah, I think it's not a lock, and fingers crossed, no jinx and all that. But yeah, I completely agree.
And even with Hairston down, you saw Tre White hitting the hills, running the hills. He's got it. And I think it was Babbage that said it, that there's 2 guys that are on a mission this year, and one of them is Tre White, the other one's Greg Rousseau. And you saw some of those tidbits and breadcrumbs in this episode. So now let's take it and talk about Hairston. And this was one play everyone has seen. I think the Bills have been posted. But it's a play where
from the end zone angle, so we were behind Hamler and Hairston.
Right. So there's an in-breaker here. Hairston's kind of in trail. I can't tell just based on this angle if this is even his zone, but that recovery speed, that ability to get back in the play was really on full display right there as you see him come back and make a play on the ball. And that's something we talked about with him when we broke him down, right? The ability to recover. And it almost looks like he baits the quarterback here too, because his eyes and hips are down. He's just waiting. He's waiting. And then as that ball is thrown, you see him immediately, boom, come flat across, break on it, and make a play on the ball. That is what Hairston brings to this defense. And again, I don't know if we'll see him this year, but that is the ability that I'm sure this regime has wanted at the cornerback position over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and this was right after, I think they actually showed the play right before on like for a positive for Josh and Hard Knocks. Right before this, he broke on an underneath route from Samuel by the sideline and almost got the PBU or almost got an interception, but Allen put it right on the money and Samuel got it. And this was like literally the next play, which is part of why Hairston's so amped up when he gets his hands on it, gets the PBU, because he just missed it on the play before, gets it on this one. He's feeling it as soon as he gets up. Yeah, that was, again, what we highlighted with him coming out of Kentucky. Like that recovery speed is his calling card. Like not even just the explosion and the juice, but the recovery speed, especially where if he does get beat or if he is in a disadvantageous position, he's got the athleticism, the juice to kind of make up for it. I'm trying to remember, I feel like from that angle, it looks like he baited him on purpose. And now I kind of want the all 22, like bird's eye view from Fisher to really confirm. Cause I remember off like my naked eye at camp, I was like, oh, he got beat, but recovered. But from there to your point, yeah, it kind of looks like he's just sitting, waiting. He's
kind of like squatting in cover too. That's what it looks like the way he opens.
And then seeing where Hamlin was, I remember DeMar Hamlin and Hamler. That's going to drive me insane on the same place. Like where in relation to where DeMar Hamlin was. Yeah, that's recovery speed. That's all that matters. Play got plays down, PBU, nice play for Hairston. He was feeling it.
Yeah, I'm excited about Tre, I'm excited about the future. Hairston, I think eventually he will get some playing time, but there's no rush at this point given the injury and really the disaster that the Bills and Hairston escaped
Yeah.
with that obviously that leg injury. So, but it was cool to hear Tre and to see Tre in his element, and how you heard Spencer Brown talk about it today in his presser after practice, how important and how much juice Tre White brings to the team, and especially some of that like swagger and looseness in the cornerback room, a room that over the last couple of years, as good as Benford's been overall as a collective unit, there have been some pretty down times when it comes to big games.
Yeah, we've highlighted it far too much at
Yeah,
this point on this show. And if he can just be a calming presence, if he can just be to what Rasul Douglas was a couple years ago, that's much better than what the Bills were in 2024. And again, potentially even more so even from a ceiling perspective versus what they were at Rasul, because of, we thought Rasul was a good fit. And he was for that first year.
yeah,
Tre is a good fit for this system because he's been in this system so long and he knows what to do and knows where to be and how to be there. And he has the trust and respect of his teammates and the coaching staff. And if he's feeling good physically, like it looks like he is, and he's feeling good mentally, it's cool. And again, he always had that. Yeah, good call there from Ron too. Yeah,
yeah.
Milano continues to flash. Just it's nice to see him without braces on any of his extremities, legs or arms, and just watching him flow sideline to sideline and just rep after rep. You're seeing that juice and that trigger come back to his game.
Matthew says Tre's probably lost a step that he won't get back, but if he comes in and locks it down in the red zone while Max develops, that would be the best case scenario. Yeah, he probably he doesn't have the long speed he had in prior years, but he's still got that trigger in the short area, especially if you're talking in off coverage. And in the end, we know that the primary, defense for the Bills being nickel with Taryn in there, that 5-man weave on the back end, those defensive backs all work together. It's more system oriented,
Mm.
when it comes to coverages. It's not often where the Bills ask a lot of one-on-ones. Now we want to see some of that in certain situations. And I think Tre is going to surprise a lot of people in those situations because he's still got enough to be competitive in one-on-one, scenarios. If we're talking man coverage, and be pesky and irritating to an opposing wide receiver. But overall, the system really kind of protects these guys from being exposed all too often if we're talking about getting beat deep down the field and that long speed that, Matt is kind of referencing here.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, that was tied into like my biggest takeaway from him. Just wasn't expecting to see that short area closing ability from him, where he isn't off coverage and someone runs a hitch or a speed out and he triggers and he gone like after him. Like it's a quick plant and bang.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's nice to see. And him doing similar things like, on whip routes underneath and jerk routes, the same thing, like being able to just plant on both legs, being full movement, plant, drive. He's not having to take multiple steps and hitch and gather and kind of move. It's just a quick, he's reading and reacting. He looks healthy. And I feel like he knows that he's healthy. So he's able to play faster because he doesn't have that hesitancy knowing, oh man, is my knee good? Is my ankle good? Or is my Achilles good? Like you don't have to play with that trepidation and you can just play free.
Totally. Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch as the season progresses and, guys get healthy and hopefully stay healthy. So with that said, I thought it was a great first episode. We're going to transition to another topic, but I thought it was a great episode and we got to really, meet see the fabric of this team, see the fabric of their star players and the important cornerstones to this franchise, over the last few years, but also ahead of us. Like this year, these guys are going to be the main characters in this movie.
Yeah, it was cool to see that. Even for a guy like, I tweeted earlier today, like my favorite piece from the episode was Hairston going down and Benford, normally a guy who is very stoic and like very calm and reserved and kind of just keeps to himself, being like, hey, you all right? And he's like, I'm gonna say a prayer. And he grabbed him and did I just thought that was so cool to see from somebody who is an ascending player, already one of the best players on the Bills, becoming one of the better players at his position in the entire NFL. But that leadership and that compassion, like those are those are the type of dudes you want leading your football team. And again, last year was a big transition with Diggs going and Morse and Hyde and Poyer and then Tre, when then Tre came back. But we're still in the process of establishing that new leadership group, that new culture. We're taking it forward. And it was, pretty indicating to see like who got some shine last night. And because, Hard Knocks is going to identify those guys. They want to put the main characters out in the forefront so that people can see that. And really cool to see in episode 1, a nice feel-goodery episode for Bills fans. We'll see what episode 2 brings. And we'll see how much James Cook is a focus and how much feel-goodery there is there potentially as we go through the rest of this weekend into episode 2.
He will 100% be the lead-off character.
I was going to say, I picture the episode starting and he's just in street clothes riding the bike.
He's on the bike.
Yep. And he was riding it, all jokes aside, that's how he was riding it. Like, just chilling, like, as if he was, like, it's so easy to hit.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming, and so expect it. So he's our next topic, James Cook. I think today was technically his 3rd day of the holding.
Yes, because it started Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, so his 3rd.
So there's some pretty big news that dropped yesterday when it comes to contracts in the running back position. Kyren Williams, who's a very good back, man, like super underrated. If
Great
you're
pass
just
protector.
If you're just an average NFL fan, you're probably like, okay, he's not really a big name, but he is a feature back in LA, and he got paid. It was something in the realm of 3 years, $33 million. And it's a very good number for a running back, first of all.
$11 million a year.
Yeah, and
he's right around like the Aaron Jones type of range of running backs, and Aaron Jones is a very good running back.
It's a very good starting point and blueprint for the James Cook contract. So I'm going to get your thoughts on those two players, Cook versus Williams, some of the differences, some of the, the stylistically, the roles and things they're asked to do. What are you looking for in James Cook's contract on top of, again, the differences between those two?
Man, I'm so torn on. This is the range that I thought realistically he could get anywhere from 10 to 13 million per season if we're just talking from an average annual value standpoint before the Kyren contract came out. That was kind of always my thought. And I would be comfortable giving him like 11 million per season. It is tough because so many of my players have been running backs and I love running backs. It's still tough to give a running back a second contract, knowing kind of like what we know in football, but with how good he is and his mileage isn't really too much on the tires, considering how he's been used these first several years in his career, I would be okay with this kind of contract coming his way from him. 3 years, 33 million. We'll see if he is, he might be sitting there and being like, well, I'm 10 times better than Kyren Williams, so I need that 15 million per. But I thought this was a good benchmark. And they are different kinds of players. I had talked about this last night on the show, and I feel like a lot of people on Twitter too are kind of just using it as the benchmark because people are just throwing out like the raw stats, bang, and there we go. But Kyren, and not to keep, banging this drum, he gives you the ability to be on the field for all 3 downs because he can give you quality reps as a runner, as a pass catcher, and especially as a pass protector. Cook, I think, is the superior runner. I think he's a better pass catcher, or better with the ball in his hands, I should say. But then the pass protection is just not close. So the snap share really isn't there. Like Kyren was almost never leaving the field, almost to the point last year where, because they drafted Blake Corum last year, and it was like, Corum's going to get injected. And it was just like, nope, Kyren Williams is going to be on the field for like 85% of the snaps. But Cook is, more explosive, more juice. But Kyren is just this, and I mean this in a positive way, this real just steady Eddie at the running back spot that can do a multitude of things at an above average or quality level. And he provides a really nice, calming, and effective presence in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, Cook, including the playoffs, has 56 games to Kyren's 41, 31 touchdowns to 32 touchdowns by Williams. You said it. James Cook is more explosive. Yards per reception, if we're talking the receiving game, 8.8 yards per reception in the receiving game to 6.1 from Kyren Williams. 111 receptions for Cook versus Kyren's 80. And then 4 in the running game, 4.9 yards per rush to 4.5 by Kyren. It is, I think, if we're talking explosivity, it's obviously James Cook. I think it's James Cook. But I also think Kyren, where Cook is explosive, Kyren he's consistent, and he has a thing for scoring touchdowns in and around the goal line. Like, he's a good short yardage back. he's a rock, man. He's like he's a mini version of a muscle hamster. Like he runs
Yeah.
so hard. He's not fast. He's actually
No.
kind of slow.
Yeah, I think he
for
ran like
running
a
back standards.
4.7 or
Yeah.
like a 4.6. He's slow.
Yeah. But he can make plays when you're at the low red zone and you need a touchdown. He scores a lot of touchdowns in that low red zone. But you're looking at some of these advanced stats. Surprisingly, Cook is seeing more 8-man boxes. And I think that has a lot to do with the offense and Joe Brady and going under center a lot, condensed formations, right? Bringing everyone into the box. I think that's a big thing. But a lot of these numbers are pretty close, except for, again, the explosive percentage from scrimmage, 8.8 again for James Cook and 6.2 for Kyren Williams. So I like the contract to Williams. I honestly didn't think that Bean would go anywhere near that.
Yes.
But when you consider everything where this team's at, and let's be honest, James Cook is probably their most explosive player on offense aside from Josh Allen. And he is very important. And you want to argue who's more important than Josh Allen aside from Josh Allen? Cook's in the conversation, and that's all you can say.
Between like Cook and Dawkins.
Dawkins, and let's be honest here, we're also this, guys that love running backs.
Yeah,
kind of position we played. That offensive line has a big deal and has a lot to do with that, and so James Cook has averaged, I want to say it's like 4.92 yards before contact, whereas Kyren, I think it was 4.5. I'm gonna have to pull it up. I had sent it to Joe. I don't see it on here. But obviously James Cook consistently has a better offensive line the last few years.
Yes. And the Rams line the past couple of years has been just plagued and marred by injuries. They lost guys in free agency. They haven't been able to stay healthy. They've got like third and fourth string guys at multiple spots, especially in 2023. 2023 was worse, but far significantly worse than 2024. But they've been affected with a bunch of injuries, and they have some again going into this year. I think and we've applauded this Bills offensive line so much, and for as good as this offensive line is, and it is very good, and for what they afford Allen and the offense and the run game, there are plenty of examples of Cook kind of playing above the scheme. And his ability, we talk about it so much with the core concepts that the Bills run. He fits all of them so well. The gap scheme stuff like duo and dart and the tackle long trap stuff, all the tackle pull aspects, but then the zone pieces as well. Go ahead.
So I found those numbers. I was way off. Okay, so yards before contact per rush for James Cook, 1.92, not 4.92, 1.92. Kyren Williams, 1.55. So it kind of gives you not all of the context, but lets you know, hey, the offensive line's blocking up more. It's creating more displacement for James Cook than Kyren Williams. And then yards post contact per rush for James Cook, 2.94. Kyren Williams, 2.96. I honestly thought Kyren would be higher when it comes to that. But again, I think it's fair to say, like you outlined it, injuries have been a huge factor in LA. Complete opposite for the Bills when we're talking the offensive line.
Yeah, that, fingers crossed, no jinx for this season. The Bills line has been healthy and functional, and that's what makes him so deadly with what the Bills do, because he can function so well on the zone runs and then on like the true gap scheme stuff. But then even the pieces like duo, where there are people moving on the line, if they don't, or the defense inserts and fits on the inside, he just bounces it, and there's a good chance he's going to beat that corner one-on-one, either to the corner to get upfield, or he can run through him a little bit with some of the strength he showed last year. He just fits this offense so well. And that's why it's such a conundrum for me potentially, because I don't want to pay a running back a second contract, but he also doesn't have a ton of mileage on the tires.
Yes.
And I really do believe in the offensive line in the system, but he also shows the ability to play above the offensive line in the system. And the only reason that really causes the most trepidation for me is knowing Connor McGovern's a UFA next year, and so is David Edwards. And if it comes down to like, can you use some of that money to keep one or both, or is it Cook and one of them, or Cook and something else to mitigate? Like, that's where we kind of play this game. But I do think Cook deserves to get paid. It's just a matter of whether or not it's by the Bills.
And if that number is high enough to stay in Buffalo versus another team, maybe he wants to go to a bigger market. You know what I mean? Like, There's that.
Or maybe somebody will come close to being like, we put some feelers out there and we think there are some teams that are going to give him 14 or 15 million a year. And then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
And Jason says here, he only plays 50% of the snaps though. And I know when you compare snap percentage of Cook versus Kyren, it's almost 2-to-1 ratio. It's damn near close 2-to-1 ratio. Kyren has been more of a feature back. But that doesn't mean it's almost goes back to scouting 101. That doesn't mean that James Cook isn't as good as Kyren Williams, though. That just means that this approach by this staff, whether you're talking the coaches or the front office, they have a different philosophy when it comes to running backs. They only want Cook in certain situations. Now, you could say, oh, it's because he doesn't block well. Well, the Bills also don't ask their running backs to block a whole hell of a lot.
fair.
So, again, that tells you something about that. And so it also tells you that, hey, Brandon Beane's pretty freaking good because he puts Ty Johnson out there. He puts Ray Davis out there. It's not a steep drop off. So, again, just because the snap percentages are what they are doesn't mean that James Cook isn't as good in most areas of Kyren aside from blocking. I think it's pretty obvious Kyren's a better blocker, especially anchoring and lighting dudes up.
Yeah.
Like he can anchor and take on a blitzing linebacker from the second level. Cook can ID it, but can't always be consistent and consistently anchor at that point of attack. But
1,000%.
So I get what Jason's saying here, but again, go back to scouting 101. Doesn't mean he can't do it. Doesn't mean he can't get 80% of the snaps. It's just the Bills are built different when we're talking the roster and how they want to approach things philosophically.
Yeah, and I also think too, like it's not even necessarily a knock on Cook, even though it kind of like is with the blocking stuff. Like if Cook was a really strong above average blocker, there's a chance he's like a top 5 or top 3 running back in the league. Like those guys aren't like, you've got Saquon, you've got Bijan, like you've got McCaffrey, like you've got a few handful of like true quote unquote 3-down running backs in the league. But also, to your point, the idea of like the 3-down bell cow running back still doesn't really exist. Like all these teams do have a lot of like the 1A or the 1B or the 1
Right.
and a close 2. So scheme and usage and structure of an offense tying into the skill set and the traits, I think matters so much. And it's a very, I think, contextual conversation, but a good reference point because they are different, but that contract does come into play and is of relevance.
So, and to kind of round out the segment and to kind of give you a little more context to pass blocking, and we're talking James Cook and how he's maybe not as good as a Ty Johnson or even as a Kyren Williams. Ty Johnson, obviously their 3rd-down bell cow last year. He only stayed in the pass block 31 times.
Yeah,
31 times. James Cook,
like 2 times a game.
Yeah, James Cook 14. Ray Davis 11. So you can
we
see
talk about all the time how the Bills try to get like all 5 out,
all 5
eligibles of the route distribution.
And they've been top 5 in that department of getting all of their eligible guys, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends out in the routes. They've been top 5 in that category the last few years, and last year was no different. So again, it's not that he can't get into that 80 percentile when we're talking snap percentage because he's not a good blocker. Well, I could live with James Cook blocking 31 times for the year if that meant he's going to get more touches and get 80% staying more. I could live with that. 1, because you have a great offensive line.
Fair.
2, your OC, Joe Brady, believes that the front 5 up front can hold down the fort, and or Josh can bail him out because he doesn't take sacks or turn it over.
Yeah.
Hopefully don't jinx that.
That was you say fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So again, that just to add some context to that conversation. But I do think that's a great starting point. And whereas 2 weeks ago I was like, you know what, James Cook, let him play it out. That number is pretty enticing if you're talking about spreading it out over the next 3 years, from the final year of his deal. I think I could work with that, and I would not be mad if Beane did that and extended him for, again, 3 years or so.
Yeah. And the importance, not even just in this year, like Shakir is Shakir. And we're talking from a pure weapon standpoint. The most important weapons to this offense after, it depended on if you're counting Josh Allen or not, are Shakir and Cook. And you can make the case, I think, for either one being above the other, potentially Cook. My biggest gripe from that Chiefs game is why I wanted Cook to get the ball more early and then even late. Like especially when Allen was struggling earlier in that AFC Championship game, I was like, just ride Cook, just give Cook the ball, especially because I thought he was fresher. Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. And yeah, to your point, I really didn't think the Bills would come anywhere close. Like I thought Bean was given a lot of lip service and Cook was probably gone, but maybe not now based off some of the things that Bean has said, some of the reports, and then this contract. If it kind of again, or Cook could be just sticking to the rumored guns that he has, and it's, you know what? No, I want 15 million per. I want to be the second highest paid running back. And if that's the case, okay, the Kyren contract doesn't mean anything to you. Good luck, Godspeed, have fun going to play for, I was gonna say the Raiders, but they have the Jags or somebody that's gonna pay you that. But yeah, it's very interesting now, especially with the hold in. Like, and Bean talked about it. Like, this is the first person he's ever had like not practice or whatever due to contract stuff. Like, I wonder, does that push them closer, or does that cause more friction and push them farther? And I'm very interested to see if we get any of that on camera and if they put it on Hard Knocks.
Yes. Yeah, seriously. They'll go the whole week and like highlight the drama and the friction, and then like Monday, well, probably Tuesday sometime before the episode actually airs, they'll extend them. Right.
They'll extend like Tuesday at like 7:30.
Yeah. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to some other, training camp stuff. The James Cook thing, it's going to be there for the foreseeable future, and hopefully we get some resolution there. But who are some guys, if we're talking camp stock report to kind of round out this episode, that have stood out to you over the last week or so?
I think Tyrell Shavers has been one for me. I was really bummed not last Sunday. Whatever the Sunday was before, 2 Sundays ago when he got hurt. People were crowding around him. They brought the card out for him. Like, I thought he was done. His ankle looked like not to be in a good way, but then he was back and he's been practicing. And I think he's been someone who's benefited from the multitude of injuries at the wide receiver spot. Like, they've been throwing a bunch of dudes in to get reps with the ones. And again, he's not the most athletic, but he's athletic. He's not the biggest or the longest, but he's got some size and some length to him. Like, he's this weird kind. He's not the best route runner, but he's also a decent enough route runner, and he's got some bend to him. Like, he's got a bunch of, eggs in different baskets within the traits of a wide receiver. And for a team that has Curtis Samuel banged up again, and, Elijah Moore is kind of penciled in as that fifth dude, but also maybe not. And he missed a day or two. I think he's been trending up, and it has been a nice piece to see. And he's made some plays at different points throughout camp the past couple of years. So I think he's one that's trending up a bit.
Yeah, big special teams player, has that size and catch radius. And I think his game probably resembles Coleman in a lot of ways. And we talked about having a wide receiver room that is built like a basketball team and having different skill sets and body types. I think Shavers is along that, frame of Coleman, and a guy they obviously would like to keep around. But, you see Shavers just consistently make plays when given those opportunities.
Yeah.
And guys like him with his size and body and frame, they extend the strike zone for quarterbacks. And that's very important when you're talking about a niche down player like we've seen Coleman become early on when they're in the red zone, the low red zone, or they need that 50-50 ball, that back shoulder catch. Guys like Shavers have shown that they can do that. Guys like Shavers can make those plays on the back line, like you saw him make a couple days ago at practice. And so if I'm thinking about this team, this wide receiver group as a basketball team, I think he has skills, physically, but also skills that translate on the field to certain areas or roles that the Bills want from Coleman. They can also get it from Shavers. Again, if something were to happen, he's a nice guy to have around. And he always gives it 110%. And that's obviously, they love that.
Yeah. And he just, I find him, at least in camp, like, he just consistently gets open with the ones. Like, he's just open in like the low intermediate and underneath, especially between like the numbers and around the hashes when they let him rock inside like that. He just finds space and is able to settle and box guys out and use that size and use that frame. And yeah, he's got some things that you can't teach, which is really nice to see. Who else we got here? Erik, who's been a stock up guy for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a throwaway at this point because he's been talked about pretty much every day in practice, and that's wide receiver Keon Coleman. Good or bad, he has been
Yeah.
inconsistent at times. And I want to bring up a couple clips from practice to kind of highlight something that I'm beginning to see as a trend. I want to keep tracking it when it comes to Keon Coleman and how he catches things. Okay, so or how he doesn't catch things
Yeah,
at
I was
times.
gonna say, or how he does that.
All right, so this is Keon Coleman, courtesy of Mike Rose on this play. This is one of his drops, and it's
Time.
something that he did in the blue and red. We saw it when we were there. In breaker, over the middle, dig route. And let me shut the volume off on this one. And you see him drop it. But this is what I need him to start focusing in on is slowing down as the ball's approaching.
Yeah.
Sometimes he jumps,
Yep.
catch it.
Unnecessary movement here.
He doesn't need to. And you got to understand, it's something like that was talked about. And I broke down when Josh Allen, he's throwing, he would always kind of bounce. And that screws with your vision. It screws with your ability to focus on that ball being thrown at your face. And so he does not slow down here. He actually jumps. And I think he could catch this without having to jump. But that kind of makes your head shake. It makes your eyes shake. And you see him not able to look the ball in, and it goes.
He also
through his hand.
mistimes the jump.
Yeah,
He goes too early.
I don't know why he's doing that. I think again, he could have caught that without having to jump, but I want to show you what his teammate did in the very same practice and drill. And Josh Palmer, look how smooth he is. And you see him, he slows down. He doesn't jump. It's almost like when you're going to fit up a running back to go make the tackle, you slow down, you break down. You have to do something similar with your body when you're catching the ball, and you see him look it right in, even though it's kind of on his back hip. But that helmet's not shaking because he's not jumping in the air. Those eyes aren't shaking because he's smooth through the catch point. And we don't always see that from Keon Coleman. Sometimes we do, but we do not see the consistency there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of still, the aspects that we're looking for him to improve on, just more of those refinement pieces, the tempoing and the pacing and, stem work and coming out of the break and being at the right spot at the right time when the quarterback needs you to be there. And yeah, I saw this one from Coleman earlier today. And again, watching it now, it just looks, everything is just, the timing is off on it. Even if you're going to jump, he's trying to catch it as he's coming down to the ground. But to the point then, you think that he could potentially get this without having to jump, but even if you're going to jump, the timing is off with it. It looks kind of just clunky. And then to your point, yeah, we don't have those index fingers connected. Yeah. And so he's doing more of the Miami U than he is more of the diamond.
Yeah. And that's why, again, you can see that ball
right through,
slip right through his hand. So I do think overall, though, he's had a great camp. And I do think that he is going to play a huge part in the Bills offense. He was doing a lot of the stuff in the run game, that dirty work that Mac Hollins was doing, digging guys out in duo and stuff like that. He's going to be at the point of attack because he is a good blocker and he's physical and he likes to do that and get physical with people. So I think he will be, I think he's going to be a huge part of the Bills offense. He just has to, he reminds me, I said on Turf to Tape with Sal, he reminds me of early stage Dawson Knox, where he makes the difficult catches look so easy, but he makes those gimmies much more difficult than they should be.
Yeah, you just want to want him to put it all together with the size and frame and athleticism and watch him start to do that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the highs have been really nice in camp, in the scrimmage. But I think this is par for the course, the inconsistency and the rawness, and we'll see what we get going forward with Keon.
So one guy that we saw stand out at the blue and red scrimmage on the defensive line at Deone, I know it's a numbers crunch game. Talk about who you think has had a really good camp this year, so much so that there's been a lot of rumors and speculation that if the Bills were to make a trade, they would possibly ship out AJ Epinesa, the Python hunter, because this guy has really flashed so well.
Hey, it's funny, Epinesa has picked it up recently too. He beat Dawkins really clean at camp last week. Had a pick six at camp as well. But yeah, Javon Solomon just continues to live in the backfield as a rusher, as a run defender, against the third team, against the second team, against the first stringers. He eats up tight ends. I think the most encouraging thing for me has been, even when it's against tight ends, but it's been against some tackles too, watching him drive guys into the backfield and be able to compress the pocket a little is really exciting. So much of his tape at Troy, and there was a lot of good tape at Troy because he had a ton of production, but it was usually him winning around the arc and winning around the corner. And I was like, if he can just put an inside move or more of a through you type of speed to power bull rush piece, he could really start to put it together. And we started to see flashes of that, and he's winning. We know he understands rush plan and angles and hand usage. He's a smaller guy, but he's got good hand size. He's got enough length for his size. He's got the production. Yeah, he's one of the top guys I'm excited to see this preseason because I feel like he'll get a lot of snaps considering what the edge room looks like and another chance to prove himself. And also just from the eye test, he just looks like a good football player. If you didn't know anything about football, you'd watch everybody come out of the locker room and you'd see 56 and be like, oh, that guy's probably one of the better guys on the team, right? He just looks like a good football player, and he's really starting to put it together on the field.
Yes, he's gotten a few compliments from the coaching staff and players. And like you said, coming out, he always knew how to get after the quarterback. He needed to add some different changeups, that's fine, but he always knew how to rush the quarterback. And at his size, being in the 6'1" range, you were kind of worried about how he would have fit. He kind of went against the traditional base DN that the Bills go for, but they wanted some of that, again, that closer mentality, that pass rusher mentality. So they went with Solomon, who was kind of undersized when it comes to who they, specifically like.
Yeah.
But he's showing now that he can not only do it as a pass rusher, but he's making plays in the run game at the point of attack, and not just like setting the edge, right? Not just setting the edge and making them cut back. No, he's setting the edge, disengaging and making the tackle. He's taking it to that next level. He's making plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. And that is standing out probably that much more this year because, as we talked about, the Bills wanted to get bigger. Everyone they drafted is bigger along that D-line. He's the smallest guy, but he's still making plays. And I think that contrast is actually highlighted how well he is playing at a guy that is, again, way more undersized than what they traditionally want.
Yeah, and it's funny, like last year in the preseason and even then that week 18 game, he made more plays as a run defender than he did as a rusher. And I thought that was oh, that's a really good thing for him because of how important it is for them to defend the run at that spot. And if he could start to develop the other aspects of the pass rush to the NFL level, but I had more faith in that. And seeing the run piece, you're watching him take on pulling tackles and guys in the backfield. Yeah, and it's not just let me smash for the sake of smash, like hit a guy, disengage, make a play, but he's not losing, penetration and trigger and shooting and burst. Yeah, it's really nice thing to see. And he could be, for all the Bosa and Landon Jackson talk and Epinesa and everything else, all of a sudden maybe Javon Solomon could be the prince that was promised.
No doubt. And Zach at the beginning of the show said Baylon Spector got released. Did we discuss this? No, we did not. They did release him. He's injured yet again. Yeah. So that battle has been fun to watch. Andreessen versus Spector, especially when we're talking Mike. And I think Andreessen was ahead of Spector.
He's looked good.
Even before he was healthy, before he was injured. Andreessen has just made plays all up and down the line of scrimmage. He's always around the ball. It's kind of his thing. And he's so good at processing run blocking concepts. And to the point where he's so much quicker than the guy that's scooping up to go block him. He can beat guys to the spot and get ahead of the block and make plays in the backfield. But more importantly, he's just available and he's a tackling machine. And so Spector was released today. And it's no surprise. And honestly, I don't think it even mattered that he was injured. I think Andreessen was still going to win the Mike position. And he's earned it. He's definitely earned it. And it's not just because of the injury that I think that he was going to become linebacker too.
Andreessen started to make some plays in coverage too, getting to his spots better, picking up routes more, roboting a little bit, being more aware of guys coming in and out of his zone. And with him starting to do that, I kind of felt like the writing was on the wall a little bit with everything that he brings as a run defender. Like you mentioned, it's just unfortunate for Spector that I feel like if you're Spector, you're feeling like, injuries kind of derailed you, not even just this year, but the past couple of years with, what potentially he could have been or still could be. So wish him all the best. But Andreessen started to have the inside track there.
So to kind of wrap this up, we're trying to get to the last question that we have. William Collin, one of our insiders, says, for when you get to it, has Walker looked better with Nielsen coaching? Because Rousseau has. I think you see all these video clips. Rousseau, he's going to be a problem this year. Will says, I thought he looked better in clips Sal put out today. Also, Sanders looks awesome. So we have to understand, one, Walker is a rookie. So he's got a lot on his plate and having to learn things. Two, they're also playing him at a position that he didn't necessarily major in college. And his best year, not last year, but the year before, 2023, he was
Mm.
playing a lot of on the edge and more of an odd front
Yeah,
scheme of
yeah.
3 and 4 eye. So he's not necessarily he's got the size of a nose tackle, but he's getting a lot of reps there in training camp. So it's a different ball game. There's a lot of learning, but more importantly, it's a position that is very selfless, and it's not going to be making a lot of plays on the ball himself.
Yeah, this one for me is a question that I really think the preseason is going to go a long way towards answering. I want to see Bullets live in terms of what he can do. I will say, we noted this. I was very impressed with how much he seemingly kind of trimmed down already. Like
He
he
has,
looked
yeah.
better. Yeah, he looked better proportioned. He's moving well. I don't know how he's feeling physically or how his back and the issue that he has there is going on. But he's penetrating, he's moving well, and he just looks better proportioned. He looks healthy from an outsider's perspective. And yeah, I'm very interested to see he's penetrating, he's flashing. Not to poo-poo that, but I don't care about that. I need to see him anchor against a double
Mhm.
team, especially with where he's
Keep
aligning.
Bernard and Milano free and clear.
Exactly. I need to see you drop the knee or anchor and not get displaced off the ball. In addition to being able to penetrate and line up anywhere from like a wide 9 to a 0, like he did at Kentucky, which was just
Yeah.
unreal.
No, it's something that I think your question will be answered a little more, as Anthony said, in the preseason. So before we wrap, we appreciate everyone joining us live. If you miss this show live, catch the replay on YouTube. But more importantly, don't forget we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the audio podcast platforms. I know at times during the year and during the season, it's difficult to kind of listen to this show in the audio form because we do a lot of film and visual stuff. But obviously, this is one you can catch later on audio wise. And if you've missed out on Turf to Tape with Sal and I, that's a show we're gonna be doing every single week. That is all audio. We can't use film on that because he is credentialed, but it's been fun so far. The first few episodes. That is also on the Cover One YouTube channel, but also in all audio podcast platforms. Whatever you listen to, we're there. Go find it. Turf to Tape, Sal and I. Good show, Anthony. That was fun.
Yeah, good times.
Hard Knocks, episode 1 in the books, brother.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what episode 2 brings. Preseason week 1. Programming note: Disguise coverage will be live immediately following the Bills preseason game this Saturday against the Giants and the subsequent preseason games as well for week 2 and week 3. So bang it there for that. And yeah, we appreciate all of you folks tuning in this Wednesday afternoon edition of the film. We're slowly getting back to regular time and schedule.
Creeping closer.
Creeping a little bit. As the season creeps closer, so do we in the film room towards our regularly scheduled times. We appreciate for everyone who joined us live or watched, post live, falling apart. I had no flubs until that moment. Post live, audio, whatever form or fashion your episode consumption comes in, we greatly appreciate it. Drop a like here on YouTube, rate, review, and subscribe on the audio platforms. Turn on notifications here for the Film Room playlist on YouTube, and then check out the multitude of content across the entire Cover One channel, including Turf to Tape, like Erik just mentioned, the Cover One Buffalo. They'll be live later tonight. You got Under Review with Joe DeRosa. You've got the Air Raid Hour with Steve and Tilt, and then you've got Disguise Coverage with myself. And I think that will do it for us here in this episode of the Cover One Film Room. We appreciate you folks, and we hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, and for the godfather of Cover One, Mr. Eric Turner, we will see you when we see you. Godspeed, and as always, go Bills.